Scientists have not been able to identify a specific chemical that communicates fear. However, there have been a range of studies that suggest we can use smells to transfer information, including whether or not we are afraid. Scientists at Rice University used a different approach to test whether or not humans could in fact smell fear by monitoring responses to images rather than brain scans. They collected sweat from a group of men while they watched the parts of horror movies considered to be scary. Then they asked a group of women to view pictures of facial expression that were ambiguous, or in other words not clearly happy or fearful. The women were more likely to label the ambiguous expressions as fearful when they were smelling the horror movie induced sweat. The smellers did not, however, see fear in faces that were unambiguous happy, no matter what they were smelling. The authors on the study suggest that additional olfactory information can help us draw conclusions when the information we gather from our more dominant senses, like sight, is incomplete. Another study published in the Journal of Psychological Science and led by scientists at the University of Utrecht took the study of the smell of fear a step further and explored whether or not actually feel fearful when we smell fear. The Dutch scientists collected sweat from a group of men as they watched clips from a horror movie, The Shining, and while they watched gross scenes from the slapstick-type MTV show called Jackass, they then subjected a group of women to smelling the different kinds of sweat while giving them a visual sorting task like locating a specific object in a crowded image. The researchers then monitored the facial expressions of the women as they performed their otherwise emotion-free visual tasks. The women showed a clear tendency for making fearful expressions like wide eyes, while smelling the horror-inspired sweat and for scrunching up their faces in disgust while smelling the sweat produced while witnessing gross scenes. Thus, not only do our brains process a signal from fear-induced and possibly disgust-induced sweat differently, but our brains may also absorb some of the emotion. The authors of the Dutch study claim that their research suggests that emotional chemosignals can be potential contributors to emotional contagion in situations involving dense crowds. While still somewhat circumstantial, these studies do appear to contradict the idea that we communicate as humans only through language and visual cues. However, there is still much to learn about the smell of fear as scientists, for example, have not yet been able to identify a specific chemical that can be clearly linked to fear and its potential odor. But if you don't want your friends to sense that you're afraid at that haunted house this Halloween, perhaps you should layer on the deodorant extra thick. Until next time, this is Extended with helping you make sense of science. If you're not a fan yet, make sure to click on the subscribe button and the like button and tell us what do you think of today's episode on the comment section below. See you next time.